Okay, I'd like to call to order the 921st meeting of the Board of Directors of Alexandria Sanitation Authority, now known as AlexRenew. The board, take a look at the agenda, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Second. Welly, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Madam Secretary, any members of the public?
No members of the public.
And the traffic continues to bedevil us. Okay. Consent agenda. Let's look at the minutes from our July. Way back to July. Commissioner, approve the minutes. Second. Sam, all in favor? All right. Okay, member updates. I have no community meeting update. Association did not meet over the summer. Okay, let's talk about the audit schedule.
So in the green folders, there should be a copy of the audit schedule. I'm not going to go through the details tonight. Ask Ms. Bean to stand up and give us a brief overview of the audit schedule. This is when Sue and I could expect a call this week and fact the reports there from the auditor doing this. They're
Right, if I did, she already contacted.
So we were starting to make sure everyone is aware that both Mr. Powell and Mr. Jenks, potentially Mr. Hill, were aware that these calls were coming up, and so wanted to give the context of what's been going on with the audit. So it started back in June. Our team, our finance team, has been working, especially Blake, and then other team members on his team have been supporting the audit to move it forward, going through a series of requests for our documents for them to look at. So we've been, most of the summer is spent around that. That's the first line. They conducted a site visit with Wendy in early September, and then are following up now with members to confirm, ask questions. We don't know exactly what they'll be reaching out to you, Mr. Jenks, with, but you went through it last year. I imagine it will be similar to last year's. From that, they'll be moving into testing and control, and we anticipate that the audits report will be developed over the course of October to meet the deadline to actually put it out in front of the board or the Finance and Audit Committee on November 5th, ahead of the November 12th Finance and Audit Committee meeting.
So the season begins. Mr. Jenks, any comments or additions?
It's in the schedules. And prior years.
one other item to note is that we are preparing a popular annual financial report this year. We're going to convert our annual report into a paper. And that's something we're going to do as part of the audit process this year. So some of the other utilities are doing it with the decision whether or not giving in a report or a paper. It just makes sense. We're kind of already doing a paper. We just need to supplement that in the reports and the original finance.
What is this popular?
It's essentially it looks essentially like our annual report. It's an annual report updating the major initiatives and business objectives of the organization. And then it goes through the detailed breakdown of finances for the year. It's summary of a more visual summary of the activity.
It's a high level financial overview in part because the financial standards have gotten so complicated. Footnotes go on and on and on and on. And as a result, profession said 15 years ago or something like that, we need to simplify this for the public because our base document, which the public rely on, is now complicated. So it's the CFR that it's intended for people. Yes. That make you understand.
One other note on finance, Mr. Arkin was named one of 32 recipients of the GFOA award recognizing excellent public service. So kudos to them.
Great reflection on Mr. Akube and great reflection on AlexRenew. Good. Anything else on this topic?
Finance. Governance, yes.
Let's move on to governance. Board assessment and the meeting on the 28th.
Yeah, so I don't know, Mr. Rizzo, you want to get, so we've been working behind the scenes over the last 2 weeks with the governance committee. Our meeting is coming up on the 28th of October. You all should have received a link for the board assessment, the board self-assessment. It's a little more focused on words this year as opposed to filling out, numbers and rankings. So we get some good feedback that way. In addition to that, in your green folders tonight, we also put the draft agenda for the governance meeting. Coordinating with Mr. Gill and Ms. Hammer, we shortened up the agenda for governance to focus on primarily the results of the board self-assessment. And then talking about a board composition matrix, which you all should have received an email today. We also printed out a copy of the composition matrix in the green folders to take a look at that as well. It's really for the board composition matrix. It's going through and ranking your areas of expertise from 1 to 5. And most of the rest of it is already populated. If there's anything you need to just go ahead and shape it. But compared to the self-assessment, the board matrix, because it's the self-assessment, might be an hour or so of effort to go over the question. And then we'd also like to talk about annual retreat themes at this October governance meeting. The October governance meeting will be followed then by an April governance meeting where we will be doing our governance training with general counsel and dealing with additional items. So we're going to try and get it indicated for every 6 months for the governance meeting to be more regular like the finance about.
Board self-assessment is due at the end of October.
Consistent in developing those questions and feedback on the agenda and also on the matrix.
Thank you to the governance team for putting this all together. Great. Okay, let's move right into unfinished business, the delegation of authority policy, which we left open at the last meeting, way back in July, I guess.
And so a few updates to the board. It's been a few months, but we this delegation of authority from a contracting perspective is really important to prospective bidders because it shows that we have delegated authority to be able to execute and move the job forward. They're not going to have to wait for months and months and months at least to get paid for a change. We also added a change order authority for sole-source contracts. We defined emergency contracts, which was the other major comment, and then we added Mr. Hill providing board updates on a monthly basis for the use of these authorities that are contained within the delegation. So we tried to capture all of the board comments. And we sent this out initially in the August packet, and it's the same way it was in August.
No, I think the layout of the revision is nice and clear. I like the way number one and number two are very clear what the conditions are. And, very good. Discussion on this? Councilman?
It's good.
Ready to, move on this? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Colorelli, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we are racing through this agenda. Okay, new business, financial policy.
Yeah, I think this is a really easy one. So financial policy, we were talking last month going through the approval process for our write-offs. And what we did with respect to the write-offs is we defined, for the board to ask, we defined active and inactive accounts. And the financial policy, that's the only change. And you can't help yourself sometimes when getting something that is table of contents as well. To the financial policy. So to make it easier to navigate.
It's actually not a table of contents, but there's a lot of subtitles, so when you look at it in PDF form, you can look at the, it makes it much easier to go through and find. I know we all like to read this from front to back, but it's content.
I did read it.
Changes in this one, page 11.
Yep, yep.
The addition of the acronym.
Section 8, very clear. Very clear.
I have, so probably, I don't know how long it's probably been in. Section 3, bond participation notes, right after it's used the acronym bands, it uses it, it then starts a sentence and the capitalization. This is page 5 of 15.
Yeah, you can see it in the track changes. It was a,
There's
it's in purple.
3 letters that be capitalized, consistent with the way it's used and the way it's used in the industry.
A motion to approve the revised policy as amended by Mr. James. A second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now. Policy for our fleet.
We talked about this last meeting as well, back in July, that it feels like the LEAP program moved forward and came together relatively quickly. We talked a lot about it as a board, but we felt like we hadn't done it justice by documenting it in some way, in some form. So the board had that as a policy moving forward in the organization. So what we did is the discussion around LEAP started over a year ago around the training assistance program. So we see this policy as something that can be a living document and whether payment assistance program grows and changes. So right now, what we did is we put the basics in there for what we agreed on for LEAP. And in addition to that, we added what we also do through our chronic pay program, how we offer payment assistance with respect to if you remember in July, we also deleted the amount, we deleted the income requirements to sign up for the Mr. Roberts on the process about what we're saying was exactly given. But right now we kept it, pretty general so that, we could change this as needed, if you know, we added a sentence in there. Make sure that we can be able to adjust this without having a, official action, things like that, to respect to, the board feedback. But coordinate.
Are you referring to the sentence, in F on the second page? Because that was one of my questions about this, which is, beyond the limit on how much an individual household can receive, this document doesn't say anything about what other changes would require approval by us, unless I missed it.
It was that.
Okay.
Correct.
I
So,
think it would be good to, add something on more broadly what other sorts of changes could be done without updating the policy. So,
What are you going to handle, this is 350 maximum credit, is that one time?
right now it is. One
I'm just
time.
wondering whether to use clarify,
Calendar year.
one time max credit.
Yeah. Is there any other changes to this policy we're meant to come back to the board from the structural change? I think we're gonna be crossing with them now. You'll see that, I don't know the data in advance, but you're gonna see that, 350 is on the lower end of people's arrears right now, so we thought that looking at the policy, that number's gonna get. We're crossed with it, but every time we want to move that number, we have to come and like have a formal action from the board. We can do that, we just have to keep it in the policy back.
I think that's necessary. Just, might be other program design changes beyond that you want to make, and this doesn't say anything one way or the other, whether you need to bring this to us. It's just for clarity.
Why don't we send this one back? Put that language in there.
Sure.
I have a few additional line edits. We don't need to go into them here, but just, for clarity on some of the things. One question that I had actually on the payment plans, which is in the first half of the policy. And I'm sorry, I don't know this already, but it says that failure to make payments as scheduled will result in cancellation of the customer's payment plan. How many payments can you miss before that happens? 3? That would be good. Because I see also that you're no longer eligible following 3 failed payment plans, but that's a different. You can miss 3 payments or
Oh,
You
No.
you can miss one payment.
One payment.
You get failure.
3 times. So that's F.
but one.
So I would, so anyway, I have some notes. I'll send some line edits. That's one thing that we could. But it's really good to have this on paper and just very clearly laid out, and it's great.
And I agree, we should put some language in here that gives the general manager flexibility to
I'm not asking for that, I'm just,
modify the program as we learn more.
I think we want to continue discussing that with the boards, because again, I said this last meeting, we developed this together. And I think we're seeing changes, that was just, the way it is. We look at back to forth. In the offline, be honest, but we were concerned that 350 might not be enough, so it's something we want to have a conversation with the board about, and not have to pay the official motion, pay for it, just like that later. And that was one that we see change in potentially a lot over the next few months, while this program remains a little fluid, and we're still feeling out involved.
It's good to get the policy put down. It stays in flux for another month or so. And members of the board, forward your comments directly to general manager.
So do we have a Word copy of this that I can type in? Thank you.
To use something.
That's the lawyers.
Okay. Now, a very exciting topic. Feedback.
So just note, there is one slide that we added some notes to. It's the slide with the on stuff on it. So when we get to that slide, we can that slide is pretty meaningful. We added some notes to the slide, nothing else. So material change occurred on that slide. Vince Dinas is going to give us an overview of PFAS. I think for the board, I think I sent an email to Mr. James. This is unique timing. We have just finished our sampling, our second round of sampling in June and got the results back and wanted to share an update with the board. If you sign on to any environmental website, last not for you name it, you're going to see the word feedback at the top of the page. It does impact us at the organization, and this Dinas has been leading us for the last few years with respect to PFAS. This is going to give us an overview of it.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys today. I'm Allison Dinas. I'm the Chief Water Quality Officer here at AlexRenew. I lead one of our biggest departments at AlexRenew. That includes the wastewater treatment operations, lab and compliance, and sustainability. So approximately 50 of the employees here who work here. I've also been really involved at the state and national levels in work groups that are looking into this issue. Specifically, the most recent past co-chair of the National Association of Clean Water Agencies Water Quality Committee. I helped lead the Virginia Biosolids Council's research committee, and I'm currently the chair of the VAMWA Biosolids Committee, and I'm on the board of our Nutrient Credit Exchange water quality trading for the state of Virginia. So today, oops, sorry, Lorna. Can you? Yep.
And then we get a sneak peek at the new format this evening for our new PowerPoint format that we started for the board retreat. But Ms. Dinas is debuting our new design. Hopefully that everybody appreciates the new look.
Justin and I went back and forth. Yeah. Yes. So today we're going to go through an overview of PFAS. So their history, how they cycle in the environment. We'll talk about regulations, really doing a deep dive into biosolids regulations and what we're seeing at the national stage, and talk about how they potentially will impact AlexRenew. Right now, we're in kind of a regulatory flux without a lot of decisions being made, but we expect them to be made pretty soon. We'll look at our recent sampling results and talk about biosolids management, because that's where we anticipate seeing the most immediate impact to what we're doing here at AlexRenew. And then talk about our PFAS risk management strategy broadly as we're in this time of uncertainty. Oh, oops. Okay. Lorna, you and I double clicked. Yeah. Okay, there we go. So a little bit about PFAS, everybody's favorite subject, organic chemistry. You can see on the right side, these are diagrams of two common PFAS that you'll hear spoken about, PFOS and PFOA. PFAS compounds in general are characterized by a carbon chain with these very strong carbon-fluorine bonds. They are human-made, so that's why we see them in our environment. This extremely strong carbon-fluorine bond means that they don't break down totally in the environment. They're widely used. Because they don't break down and degrade easily, there are very useful commercial applications for these compounds. And particularly PFOA and PFOS, but others can have negative human health impacts. Like I mentioned, they are used in almost everything. So firefighting foams for really high heat fires, things like airports use PFAS containing firefighting foams, water repellent clothing, paints, stain resistant products, nonstick cookware, food packaging for things that are greasy or stay in that packaging for a long time, and cosmetics. We all like slippery cosmetics. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this slide because it's pretty complex. Because PFAS are so widely used and they don't break down fully in the environment, they cycle through our water, air, and soil cycles. So starting up here, I'm going to start with how PFAS are introduced in the environment. Industries manufacture PFAS compounds, or they use PFAS compounds in manufacturing their products. And that manufacturing has byproducts, industrial waste that can go to a landfill, air emissions that can cause air deposition, or industrial wastewater releases that typically can come to a wastewater treatment plant for their pre-treatment program. Those products, the compounds and the things that we use, are used in the community. So we use them. And by using them, we discharge PFAS compounds into the wastewater treatment plant. They get discharged through stormwater into surface water and into groundwater. And they can, all through this cycle, they can also make their way into drinking water that then gets recycled back into the community to be used, right? And then finally, focusing in on the wastewater treatment plant. So we get PFAS in our influent, so from the community, from industrial wastewater dischargers through our pre-treatment program. And then we can end up discharging PFAS through the biosolids that we make that can get land applied on farms and through our wastewater effluent. Where we've seen a lot of regulatory action, where there's been intervention, is right over here in drinking water. Many of you have heard about EPA setting limits called maximum levels for specific PFAS. And also here in biosolids, there's been a lot of regulatory action because of the impact on farming and the land application. So we like to think about regulations and how they impact our influent, and biosolids, because that's where we're going to have to take action. So on the influent side, these the National Primary Drinking Water Standards, those maximum contaminant levels, the maximum level that you can have of PFAS compounds in your drinking water, were established for 6 PFAS compounds: PFOA, PFOS, PFHXS, PFNA, GenX, and mixtures. So EPA took a new approach to look, because there's so many compounds, to look at mixtures and establish a hazard level. These do not apply directly to AlexRenew, but in another slide, I'll talk about how they can impact us. The EPA Clean Water Act pretreatment program. So EPA has been looking into developing for specific industries limits for what they can discharge and treatment technologies. And then at the state level, the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality has pretreatment requirements that require certain industries to test for PFAS and report that to the Public Wastewater Authority. On the effluent side, EPA has published draft aquatic life water quality criteria. So they're proposing water quality standards for PFOA and PFOS that are hundreds of times greater than the maximum contaminant levels for drinking water, and close to thousands of times greater than what we're seeing in our effluent right now. Then on the biosolids side, currently EPA is undertaking science to establish a risk assessment for PFOA and PFOS in biosolids. They're looking at the human health impacts and how people are exposed to PFAS and biosolids. They expect to publish that in the coming months. They say it's coming. They've been saying it's coming for a while. And that risk assessment is going to set a baseline for what will be acceptable for PFOA and PFOS in biosolids, but it's not a regulatory action yet. They may take regulatory action after seeing that risk assessment. And then CERCLA. So CERCLA is also known as the Superfund Act. So the EPA recently designated PFOA and PFOS as hazardous substances under CERCLA, which means that they can take action to force cleanups, to hold parties responsible for funding cleanups, and And that can have an impact on places where biosolids have been land applied with high concentrations of PFAS. So some potential impacts, what we're seeing. As we can see, a lot of this is still in progress. But we expect that the drinking water regulations and pretreatment regulations are going to be good. They're going to reduce the amount of PFAS that we see in our influent. All of this is based on sound science. So as we're doing the research in science, that's going to improve our understanding of PFAS in the environment and PFAS at wastewater treatment plants. And then finally, these stricter biosolids standards that we're seeing will require higher levels of treatment and potentially drive us towards new technologies that might not be developed yet.
Can I ask
Yeah,
a question
of
or
course.
should I hold it?
No, please go ahead.
Just thinking about the influent and the pretreatment requirements. What sorts of industrial users are we accepting this far from? Is it a lot or
No,
not many?
we are 98% residential here in Alexandria. We have 3 significant industrial users that we permit through our pretreatment program. The hospital, and industrial laundry, and Covanta. So they are typically not the ones who have been known to be large dischargers like metal finishers of PFAS containing compounds, or chemical.
What about since we treat Fairfax County? What about other facilities in Fairfax too?
No, within the pretreatment border, within the pretreatment area for Fairfax County, we also don't have any SIUs that would be typically associated with higher levels of PFAS influent.
Is there any way to measure what PFAS is in the Fairfax water, which provides the water coming into the city compared to what we see when it comes into the plant? So do we know how much, I might say roughly, it's, well, if the water folks get it out, that will greatly reduce us, or is it just a small part of all the places it comes from that ends up in our plant?
Mr. Jakes, I'm happy you brought that up because we are going to be, one of the later slides, I'm going to be talking about how we're going to be starting to look in our communities, starting with our SIUs and seeing what levels of PFAS they might be discharging to us. That's kind of the first stop, and where other states like Michigan, who've taken some steps before us, have seen the most impact, because, you know, starting with those SIUs is a significant industrial user under the pretreatment program. And those are the folks that we have permitted to discharge to us through our pretreatment program. I'm sorry, are there any further questions? So just to orient us, I'm going to pivot a little bit from this national picture to right here at AlexRenew. This is how the, oh, sorry.
It does. It should be. It's working earlier.
I'm just going to walk up here. So all of our influent comes in right here at the front of the plant. It goes through coarse screening and fine screening, and we sample our influent right here. So before it hits primary settling tanks. And then that travels we pump it to our biological reactor bases where it undergoes biological nutrient removal. And then that comes in to our secondary settling tanks, to our tertiary settling tanks and filters. And then out here to UV disinfection, post-aeration. And we sample our effluent right down here. This is our permit effluent sample our effluent. So when I talk about influent sampling, think right here at the front of the plant. Effluent sampling is after it's gone through full treatment. And then the solids that we generate through our primary settling tanks, secondary settling tanks, and tertiary tanks, those all get pumped to our solids processing center. This is where we make our biosolids. Those different solids, they get thickened, combined, they go through pre-pasteurization where they're heated up. And then they spend a lot of time in our digesters where they're also biologically aerobically treated. And that digested solids gets pumped over here where it's dewatered and made into plastic cake that gets land applied. And this is where, at the end of that treatment process, this is where we sample our solids. So when I talk about, the influent, effluent, biosolid sampling, this is where, at the end of the biosolids treatment, is where we sample those solids. Questions? So to orient, we thought it would be really important to give a picture of kind of the how much solids AlexRenew generates compared to our other regional partners. So we generate about 21 to 23,000 wet tons of biosolids a year, about 2 trucks a day. But compared to the rest of our regional partners, we're pretty small. So the big folks in this region are DC Water and WSSC. They generate 5 to 6 times the amount of solids that we do per year. They also land apply in Virginia in some of the same counties that we do. And then Fairfax County, Prince William Water, they do an extra step on their biosolids and they incinerate their biosolids and generate an ash that gets landfilled. So AlexRenew, we're currently producing a Class B cake. And then I'm going to talk about, as well, you may have heard from Ms. Glapion and Mr. Pylon about our solids upgrade program, about how we're going to be moving to creating a Class A pellet, which will reduce our volumes and will be.
Could you describe
Yeah.
the difference between the Class A pellets, the cakes, the different levels of cakes?
I would love to. I can go as deep as you want, Mr. James. So biosolids are classified according to the amount of pathogen reduction that you do. So a Class A cake has essentially 0 pathogens, and it can be used with less restrictions than a Class B cake. We currently produce a Class B classified cake, and so we pay a little bit more for hauling and land application, and it can be used in not as many applications. A Class A pellet is taking that cake and drying it further, so it can be used more broadly. It can be mixed into fertilizer. It can be used to make other products, and it can be used to make energy if you wanted to. So we have Class A cake, Class B cake, and a Class A pellet. You could burn it.
Burn it like in waste energy, so it's not street.
Yeah, yep. It has a pretty high energy value.
It's Fairfax, burn there's waste energy, so.
No, they have their own incinerator.
One thing to clarify, AlexRenew does promote Class A biosolids. We do produce a Class A product. It can't be verified as Class A because we don't have a salmonella test, because we pasteurization to achieve our acid chain reduction. It's the closest lab now for doing
It's in
salmonella.
Florida.
So we just say it's Class B, and we've been doing that for the last
5 years.
5 years or so. But it truly is one of 2 pasteurization facilities in the United States.
It really is a pathogen-free product, but because of standard methods, we just can't prove it.
Does that impact the way that, it obviously impacts the way that it's being used, but how does that sort of?
So the Class B is not nearly as attractive as the Class A solid, so it does cost us more to expose it. One of the reasons we decided to go to the Class A pellet is that it has we have better options that aren't just going to rely on and application for the pellet.
But aren't we gonna still have the same problem with the salmonella?
No,
At that point, we're gonna pivot away from the pasteurization completely. We're gonna go straight to digestion and then freeze-dry. And then that process will get us to Class A pellet, reducing volume and giving us options on the back end. We can land apply if we want. Also, then we might make pottery Waste energy, which is something we were talking
Your own
to the
by
city
it.
about putting in the landfill. Or we could partner with our regional facility and invest in hydrothermal liquefaction. It really, or paralysis, or whatever other word I want to make up right now for something that exists in the future. But it can just be a pivot in the future to, if PFAS becomes the driver for solids and safe destruction of PFAS. So it gets us that next step in dealing with the solid issues that Alex will talk about that we're seeing.
What happens to PFAS in the incineration process?
Excuse me?
What happens to PFAS when you incinerate?
So it's a great question. They're looking at that now. So we talked about how PFAS are found in, nanogram per liter, parts per trillion and water. And so measuring that in air is very, very difficult. So they were part of a national study that's looking at pyrolysis and incineration through the Research Foundation, but they're really having trouble quantifying.
They use a thermal burn on the back end. It doesn't completely get rid of the area that, just like it doesn't in the industry with thermal oxidizer, that heats up the stack and burns what it can. We've heard these drop numbers anywhere from 10 to 20% still leaving the stack in an incineration process. Those are very rough numbers that have been presented. This is the area of emerging technology of that.
They estimated it takes like 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit to break apart some of those carbon chlorides. And option is complete. So, we talked about national regulations, but we didn't talk about actions that are happening on the state level. And what we're seeing with PFAS is that some states are getting ahead of EPA's regulatory process and enacting their own regulations. You all may have heard about in Maine, where they banned the land application of biosolids, or Michigan, where they've established their own limits for PFOA and PFOS in biosolids. So we wanted to give you an idea of what might happen to our costs if Virginia were to take some of those similar actions. So you can see that currently we spend about $45 per ton, and about on a year, we spend about $1 million a year to have our biosolids hauled off site and land applied. If future regulation were to take the land application right now, if we were to take the land application option off the table, and we would have to landfill all those biosolids, that would quadruple our costs. The other impact that they're seeing in Maine is that there's not enough landfill capacity for all of the biosolids that are generated in the state. So the landfills are in a process of trying to get permitted to increase their capacity.
Does it have to go to a hazardous waste landfill or
No.
regular?
It can go to a regular landfill.
Simple liner.
It's just a simple liner, used as daily cover, or it can just be. But if we would have PFAS concentrations that were very high in our biosolids, that would then cause them to be classified as a hazardous waste. This is not currently anticipated, but this is a doomsday scenario we wanted to give you guys an idea about. That would be about 8 to 10 times. So it costs us almost $8 to $9 million a year to go to a hazardous waste facility. If we could find one, that would take it, because at that point, of those facilities would be very limited.
We want the pellets from the current wet product.
Yeah,
How much volume is that? We take all the water out of it. It's 2 trucks a day now.
yeah, about, we could expect like
70%.
70%, 78% reduction in the volume, which is why it's a really attractive option. It lowers our costs, our hauling costs, produces a Yeah. A product that we can use in more ways. And then it mitigates a little bit against this risk, right? Having to, we can't land apply.
Have we heard anything about, sort of the sentiment at state level?
Yeah, I have to give the Commonwealth kudos. They've been taking a really science-based approach. I know that they're staffing up right now, so they've been given money to add 2 positions that would be focused on PFAS analysis and so I think they've been really taking a measured approach because they've seen what's happened in other states where it's been really expensive and very difficult to deal with it if you go to an outright ban. So a little bit about EPA's method. So kind of diving into our sampling. We use EPA's method 1633. I mentioned before that there are about 5,000 PFAS compounds in use. Method 1633 can detect 40 of those. 40 of the most common ones, but still that's a drop in the bucket from what we use in our what's out in commerce. And then recent science has shown that PFAS compounds can undergo transformation during biological wastewater processes. So when I walked you through the work, we have kind of 2 areas. We have our biological reactor basins on the liquid side, where we have biology and air and heat and time that are biological processes, and our anaerobic digesters. And so those 2 processes have been shown to transform some of these PFAS compounds into from ones that you can't detect through method 1633 into ones that you can on the back end. And I mentioned
about that.
Yeah.
But does more detectable mean, does it change the like characteristics of the PFAS? Is it more hazardous? Is it just a different kind that's easier to detect?
so they can, like, it can transform them into PFOA and PFOS. So PFAS have different families, like it can transform them typically into PFAAs. And some of them can be more hazardous. But it was going to happen in the environment at some time. We just kind of accelerate that process. So here are our results. This is our second sampling effort. The first sampling effort was confounded by some sampling issues. When you're sampling at for compounds at such low concentrations, you have to do what's called clean sampling, so you don't contaminate the sample, particularly when they're so widely used. So we sampled in June 2024. What we've seen is that we've detected 5 compounds out of 40 in our influent, 10 compounds out of 40 in our effluent, and 7 compounds out of 40 in our biosolids. That is pointing towards we're seeing biological transformation of what's coming in. The total concentration of PFAS is in our influent was what we detected was 41.1 nanograms per liter. That's approximately, if you want to think about it, like 5 water drops in Olympic-sized swimming pool. So very small concentrations. In our effluent, we detected 78.8 nanograms per liter. And in our biosolids, 83 nanograms per gram, because we're not measuring water. So. And the most abundant compounds that we've seen are PFHXA and PFPEA in our influent, PFPEA in our effluent, and 5,3-FTCA in our biosolids. That last one's really interesting because that's indicative. You see higher concentrations of that in landfill leachate and other places where you're getting anaerobic transformation of like organic compounds. So one good thing to point out is I mentioned on note 2 that the draft EPA aquatic life criteria set PFOA and PFOS concentrations at 94,000 nanograms per liter and 8,400 nanograms per liter respectively. So we are very much below those draft water quality criteria. Moving over to the right, we wanted to give some context about how we would compare to what we're seeing on the national stage. As you can imagine, since regulations aren't out yet, there's not a lot of publicly available data. So we compared ourselves against a recently published project from the Water Research Foundation, where they sampled 38 treatment plants anonymously here in the US. I think it's a really good story. Our influent, where we're seeing a much lower concentration, total PFAS concentration. Our effluent, we're pretty much on par with what they saw in that report. And then our concentrations of PFOA and PFOS in our effluent are lower than what they see on the national stage, the national research.
Thinking about, what do you think explains the gap? And so on the influent side, our influent is much lower PFAS than average. But when you get to the effluent, it's it's more close to the average. Do you have any suspicions as to what explains what's going on there?
Yeah, I do think that we're getting a lot of PFAS precursor compounds in our influent that we can't see, we can't detect because that EPA method is so limited. Because we've done a preliminary study of where we might be using PFAS in our process and did not come up with anything like scrapers, equipment, chemicals. We couldn't identify PFAS, any of these compounds that we're using.
Is there, a good enough sense, is science therefore good enough sense what this precursors might be coming in, like where they're coming from?
That's a good question, Adriana, because we can't sample for them, because we can't see like that non-targeted analysis is difficult. Only a few labs do it. And the chemistry of all these compounds is very complex. So I haven't seen anything that gives us a good idea of what. We're hoping through our pre-treatment sampling that we might get a better idea of where the compounds that we're seeing are coming from. But we do see PFHXA and PFPEA in the drinking water sampling that Virginia American. I do. I don't have that readily available, Mr. Beal. Virginia American Water does a great job, and they published all of that data on their website. So they just recently EPA just recently did another large monitoring study of drinking water that included a lot of PFAS compounds, and that data should be available soon as well. But we can send around.
You're welcome.
We move on to this. By the way, this is a great presentation. A little scary, but it's a great presentation. The data that shows up here.
Mhm.
How many samples were taken to come up with the 5, 10, and 7?
So it was one grab sample done with a clean grab method.
Okay.
This is our second sampling because the first one.
Science.
Yeah.
Okay, so really, it's one grab sample.
It's one grab sample. So we actually yesterday just took our second quarterly grab sample for influent effluent biosolids. And that's something that we'll be continuing to do. So we get a broader, more representative data set of what's happening during a year.
Find that during the year it's relatively level, or is the weather or particular uses cause spikes at certain times of year, valleys?
That's such an interesting question, Mr. Jinks. So what they saw in the Water Research Foundation is that their report is that there was a little bit of seasonality for some plants. They're not sure why. It seemed to be PFAS concentrations were higher in warmer weather and lower during the winter. But I think we have to remember that it's only 38. Yeah, so that's not a big sample size, but that's one of the reasons why we want to sample quarterly to see if we're seeing some of those patterns.
Now, I've got to ask the financial question.
Yeah.
Over the next 10 years, we're slated to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on solids. Given the state of detection technology and the state of regulation and the state of the capture technology, jump with the gun.
I don't think so. I think we made a very strategic decision to go to a thermal dryer because it provides us near-term benefits of going to a Class A pellet product, which we know we can use in a lot of different applications. It reduces our volume, so it reduces our hauling costs. And then it sets us up for when some of these biosolids destruction technologies might be more commercially viable. So
I think we need back up for the solid process, remember where we're starting from, that's already 25 years old. So priority one for solid upgrades is to get it reliable on solid and not have our operations and maintenance staff, out there triaging solid on a daily basis. That's driver one for our solid program. I think the second driver, for the solid program, if you've been following biosolids for any amount of time, this happens every 15, 20 years. Last one was with PCB. It's like, pushing over the refrigerator. At some point, it's going to tip over and planned application. That risk could go away, right? That the other thing we're competing with in the beginning is farm fate. Farm are competing for solar power. They're competing for development. We're running out of farms. And then you add PFAS that mix, and that just makes our decision to run solid and going to dry that much, more defined to go in that direction. It's not a PFAS-led decision. PFAS is part of that. We didn't really on what technology we select. And again, I think our selection of technology is meant to be able to pivot to the future if some of these things come into fruition with respect to the PFAS, that going to a hydrothermal impact and some other type of technology. It doesn't really exist, but we need solids to be upgraded. We need to move. We want to get back to a Class A product. We want to be more competitive in the market for land application.
That was a very crisp answer. Good. Thank you.
$1,000 presentation started.
Yeah. We can share that offline. So we are doing right now because the regulatory landscape is still uncertain, it's still forming. We're doing a number of things to help prepare us better for future regulations that might come. One I spoke about is source control. So the easiest treatment dollar you get is the dollar you invest in not getting it at all. So working with our local industries, those 3 SIUs, to sample and identify where there may be higher concentrations of PFAS to us. And we may expand that depending on what we see, but that's the first place we're going to start.
Spreading national discussion, regulatory discussion, basically saying non-stick pans, resistant pans. I mean, I don't know, I just use that as an example, or clothing. That had just to say, we're just going to, I mean, we're all dealing with after the fact, as opposed to, with the source.
And we are all paying for this. The classic tragedy of the commons is environmental. So that is, I didn't get into it. EPA is taking actions through their Toxic Substances Control Act authority to deal with the sources, but it will take a while. I mentioned we're going to continue monitoring so we can understand how some of those concentrations might change throughout the year. and try to link those to what we're seeing in our community. Biosolids. So we're implementing the biosolids upgrade program with an eye towards being prepared for potential future PFAS regulations. In addition to that, we're tying that with research that we've been supporting at the Water Research Foundation, NSF, other places to help further the development to push forward the development of those new technologies that we may need in the future. And then partnerships. We as an organization are very active at the local, state, national level in PFAS work groups, water quality groups, to share knowledge, best practices, as we're kind of trying to figure out what the future holds for us all. So with that, I'm happy to take some more questions or go back to other slides. Justin, did I miss anything?
Love this whole sort of, but the number of strikes me as what you just suggested. But the territorial parts of it. How much is that working for?
So PFAS compounds in themselves aren't having a negative impact on our ability to treat wastewater or our permit effluent, our permitted effluent limits. From a scientific and environmental perspective, it would be fantastic to understand, but to have methods that would help us identify other, more PFAS in the environment. Those take a long time to develop. And the other thing that complicates this is as industries are pivoting from things like PFOA and PFOS or Gen X that have negative human health impacts, they pivot to other PFAS compounds that might then, the methods will then need to catch up to be able to identify those. So we've seen a little bit of that as the industry is starting to phase out PFOA and PFOS. Those concentrations over time are decreasing. Those concentrations of other PFAS are increasing. Because these are, can't say it enough, very useful compounds, and they're used by us everywhere.
To the question, I think it's like an important contextual point is that EPA won't regulate something that can't be. So if your question was about, are we worried that, we're not protecting things that we're going to later, the answer is
I was thinking more towards the data decision. That's actually not a clear problem. The problem is what's greater than the news.
And the technology to
Treat it is,
may vary.
Yeah.
Depending on
what we see. Yeah.
But we don't know, so.
The technology for testing developing at the same rate as the technology for dealing with the byproduct and all of that. They have a little bit of an advanced jump on the liquid side, but we focus on that at the moment.
But thank you, Ms. Emmer, to your point, EPA cannot regulate. They can't. Other questions?
Excellent presentation.
just not a question, but more of just a remark, which is that it's that last slide, kind of walking through all the different ways that you all are approaching this. It's really great to see. It's exactly what we should be doing. I think something that's not on this slide, but that I know a lot of folks in the industry are doing is lobbying against regulations and lobbying for exemptions from regulations. I'm just glad to not see that on this slide. If that is something that AlexRenew is doing, I would like to discuss that. I know NACWA is obviously very active in that space, but given one of our goals is to be good stewards of the environment, I think that's a conversation that we should have if that is something that we're comfortable.
Sure.
I have a whole view of how I'm trying to change that.
Well, yes, so a lot of what's being discussed at the the national level is polluter pay model and a lot of discussion about wastewater and being passive receivers. I can understand somewhat why they do that in respect to CERCLA, because that's liability that, you know, you could follow all your permit requirements and still at the end of the day be liable retroactively for a land application that occurred 10 years ago. And that's the kind of being brought in as a potentially responsible party to a cleanup is not a good use of public funds. So we're trying to walk that line. While we can understand the exemptions that are being sought to protect wastewater entities from that kind of potentially responsible party liability, for everything else, that's what we do. We are always at the end of the line. We're always the ones, you know, the last defense and the last ones to clean up what is coming into the plant eventually. I know that Mr. Carl met with several of the authorities in this area to talk about the narrative and changing that narrative away from passive receivers, which makes us think, look like we're just throwing up our hands and we can't do anything about it, to being more of an active solution to this, what is a community problem, which is a pervasive community problem. So we are trying to somewhat change the narrative because we know it hits people the wrong way. It makes us look like we're just trying to get out of any responsibility. But where we do agree is that we do not want to spend ratepayer dollars on cleanups or things retroactively that we're totally in compliance with all laws and regulations. So it's, you know,
You said it perfectly.
Also, let's just say you're against something totally, you're not in the room. Regulations negotiate, if you're in a sense, yeah, we would want to do those. And you have the ability to actually influence. Yeah.
In the New York Times article, the passive receiver part, you know, the 11 o'clock at night, it texted it, but you know, kind of crazy a little bit. You know, it makes us kind of, you know, it reflects back poorly on us as an organization to say that we just a receiver, passive receiver of a lot of things. Doesn't mean we shouldn't do the right thing and step up and deal with it. So we're starting that push. Recently, trying to change that narrative. Hopefully, I don't see that.
We stay on the slide for just a minute. Then, by the way, this was just a wonderful, thoughtful presentation. The monitoring block there. The superb monitoring program. I'm designing, I think that's probably we have that because it seems like there's just a scarcity of data.
There.
What are the substances? Where are they coming from? All those sorts of things.
We are just starting our monitoring journey. I think the first step is understanding what's going on here at the wharf. And so that requires us to do a lot more data collection. And then I think it's starting to go out very judiciously into the community to understand, to identify where potential sources might be and sample those. Once we get a good handle on what we see coming in, you know, one grab sample does not make a superb monitoring program, but we are getting there.
Sampling at the front door
Yeah,
is really too late.
yeah.
And I think this does require a paradigm change, right?
It does.
To push the perimeter of what we think of as wastewater treatment much farther out from this plant.
Yeah.
And this is epidemiological.
Yeah.
It truly
It's very
is.
similar
Yeah.
to that.
It really, really is.
That's back to the source, back to the trucks, back to the lines. Steve, they're the biggest concentrations.
And it's a natural tendency in traditional utilities to focus on the process.
Mhm.
And I think we need to think differently, really understanding the context of that process. think that requires us going beyond the walls of the plan.
Mr. Jenks, you put on the drinking water aspect, that as part of characterizing all the sources, looking at what's currently coming in via household that are using drinking water, and look at those levels and how, when we are at full compliance with the MCLs, how we'll get reductions there. I think, we can't necessarily rely on that, but that could help us with some of the household side. But once we look at our SIUs and we determine what, if anything, is coming from them, if we rule them out, then we're looking at households, and that's public education. All of that through product bans will eventually start to catch up, but we can look to shift to educate the public about what they might be using at home that could be contributing. And just monitor as we go along how we're seeing impacts on the levels coming into the plant.
We talked about.
It's so pervasive though, like, and people don't want to give up their like waterproof, like their rain gear and, all that stuff. I mean, outreach is great and it's important, but it's gonna be an uphill battle because it.
Question going to John's point, we're doing quarterly testing. That doesn't give a statistic of a lot of, the more data we have, the more confidence we have in this. So I'm wondering whether or not something that's more robust program sample more often and data points at various testing points, and those ideas, a better idea of seasonality will give us a better idea whether these are aberrations or what this is, or whether or not this is pretty much what we're seeing.
That's a great point, Mr. Jinks. I think we thought starting off we would follow EPA's guidance to monitor quarterly. That's what they've suggested as best practice. But you're absolutely right. It's going to take us a while to really, with a quarterly sampling plan, to kind of see what that seasonality is and develop a really good database. The other thing that's a struggle with the sampling and analysis is that there are very few labs that are qualified to do this method, and there's a large backlog. So it took us, the first sampling effort we did in May, and it took us until December to get our results back. This one was a little bit quicker. We sampled in June and we got our results back in August. So that data, the analysis of the data is also a big backlog.
I assume the lab industry will catch up.
Hopefully, that's the hope, yes. Yeah.
Do we have any? Okay, so I think the thing that's most troubling to me is our levels coming up of influent, and then the effluent, so something's going on in the process that is transforming them. Do we know if other treatment plants are experiencing the same thing?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but let's keep in mind that's one grab sample.
It's also one graph.
Variance.
Yeah, it is. Statistics aren't good on that one.
Is there any research being done on what exactly within the wastewater treatment process could be doing this? Like if there's like one spot or is it the entire process? Is there any research being done on that?
Yeah. They think it's happening during the biological processes where you have microbes that are really active and can and are just either, a lot of these compounds have like different chemical tails, like sulfuric tails or alcohol tails they're then kind of working on those, and chemically they recombine or break apart and become ones that we can see. Typically what's happening is that they just transform into what are called these terminal compounds, like the PFAAs, what we're seeing here.
But it's an integral part of the sewage treatment.
But that is how we treat, that's how we treat wastewater. Yeah. So, but they're still doing research on that now. You see it some places and you don't see it others. So it's not.
talk about this all night. But this was fantastic and a great introduction. It's a very complex topic that will be for a center of mind for the next decade.
Well, I appreciate you all bearing with me.
No, we all enjoyed it. Okay, moving right along to a much different topic,
Let's say much lighter topic.
our wellness program.
Before my Callahan starts, just a quick heads up, we wanted to bring, October is a few things for us at Oxford. It's our wellness month, but it's also cybersecurity month. Mr. Rowell is coming next month to talk a little bit about cybersecurity tips for the board, but with the strategic plan that was established last January, we wanted to make sure that our strategic goals were being updated and the board was being brought along to know what we're doing with staff with respect to our thriving workforce. Our thriving workforce strategic goals. And Ms. Callahan is going to walk through what we offer to staff and board members this month for wellness. It's our focus on our staff's mental and physical health.
And we could join the walking.
Wait, a what? October? You could if you wanted to. It gets quite competitive around here. Teams get quite competitive. So yeah, just to give a brief presentation, some of you, I think you've known that we do our health fair and focus on wellness in October. For some of our new board members may not have known this. So back to our thriving workforce and things that we do, the wellness program is part of it. So we'll go through all the different aspects of our wellness program. Our wellness month is highlighted throughout the entire month of October, much like our safety month is in June. And then some of the benefits that we're seeing from our program, we've had it in place for several years now. So we focus on it. You'll hear the terminology out in the public, well-being. It's versus just wellness. So you're including all aspects, not just physical health, but mental health, financial health. So you're focused on all the different aspects of the person's well-being. So it's just kind of, we hit upon all those and all the different programs that we do. So it's not just something we talk about in October, we talk about it all year round. So we have a wellness program, as it goes through an entire 12-month period of time where if there's incentives, people can do things to get points for an incentive at the end of the program. We have monthly topics around wellness. Sometimes we have a speaker that comes out. Sometimes we have a webinar. Could be, again, on any of the well-being topics, not just physical, mental health, could be financial health. We have Virginia retirement system or a retirement plan. They might speak about financial health.
The incentive, you get points. Can you monetize?
Yeah, so the employees can do various different things. We try to focus on them actually tying it back to their medical plan. So in order to even get the reward, they have to get their annual physical, dental cleanings, vision, audiograms, that kind of thing. That's where the bulk of the points are, and they have to get to 200 points to get a $750 reward into their health savings account. Wellness challenge, we find that our folks are, as I say, very competitive. They really enjoy Walktober, which is sponsored. It actually starts right at the end of September, goes through the whole month of October. Employees will gather and group into teams, and we have some folks that ride their bikes and walk to work, and it's very competitive. No particular reward at the end of that. It's just that they enjoy that competition. We have monthly webinars. We have at least a topic once a month. We also have in our weekly news that we send out to all of our employees. We get a lot of information from all of our benefit providers. So we make sure that we're talking about some component of wellness or health in our weekly newsletters. Of course, we have our employee assistance program. And then we say stress-free days because that kind of falls into our paid time off program. Yeah, that's your paid time off. And we also have monthly massage at work days. Yes, we have those too. Yeah, just call Jess and sign up for a 15-minute slot. So during the month of October, we will have weekly kind of topics. The wellness fair is on October 24th. It's on a Thursday from 11:30 to 2:30. We will have an on-site vaccine clinic. So if you want to get your flu shot or your COVID booster, that will be here. We also have like a biometric screening. So if you guys want to come out to that, you're more than welcome to. We will also have, it'll be on the 6th floor here. We'll have several vendors here, hoping to have around 20 to 25 different vendors from various areas, from fitness to food demonstrations to some of our benefit providers. I say we'll have the October going on. We're also during the month of October going to do a food drive with Alive, right? Who was one of our big supporters with the LEAP program. And then, of course, we have our targeted communications go on throughout the month of October. And just some metrics is that we've been doing this program. We've been having an on-site health fair since I started, so it's been over 10 years. Of course, we didn't do one during COVID, but just to give you some idea, we have great participation in our wellness program. Over about 30% or about 30 employees actually completed and were rewarded that $750 award into their health savings account last year. About 50% of the employees do their biometric screening here on site. We had over 60 because some of our afternoon and overnight staff don't make it. So we usually have over 60, about 2/3 of the group show up for the on-site health fair, get their vaccines, do their biometric screenings. And then the results of those biometric screenings, it's hard to, because your sample size is different every year, but the typical things that come up every year of some of our health risks are BMI, blood pressure, and high cholesterol from our population from year to year. And as we know, having a wellness program can be equally attributed to keeping our healthcare costs down, promoting the preventative care and the healthy habits. Of course, improves our overall health, improves employee engagement and morale, improves our workplace culture. Again, they like to have fun at work too. We get to have those in October, and also reduces stress. That is my 5-minute slide presentation.
Well, this is very important. This is really important.
Yep, it's coming right on the cusp of when we had a conversation with our brokers tomorrow about our health insurance renewal, impacts of the change in Medicare. It's going to be a big issue for 2025 and what that's going to do to our plan and our benefits. But because by having this program, United Healthcare, our provider, actually gives us money towards our wellness program. They give us like $5,000 every year. So by not having that program, we wouldn't get that credit. So it all ties together.
Ms. Cal, let me ask you a really hard question.
Okay.
Is there a way to measure the wellness of our workforce?
Well, as I say, like the biometric screenings, you can look at that sample size, but the mix of people change from year to year. So it's
That's
hard.
only one thing. You look at the circular chart early in the presentation, we're looking at social health, mental health, stressors, all that sort of stuff. There's a way to sort of say, how's everybody doing?
Oh, sure,
I
sure.
mean, traditionally in a workplace, there were how many on-site accidents,
Mhm.
but that's a very narrow, very important, but very narrow, right? Just a thought. It's a way to kind of begin to think that.
Good thought.
Because, as I understand this program, it's a very holistic approach. It's really incredible. I once worked in a workplace where there weren't many on-site accidents, but everybody smoked. Program, so, okay.
Yeah,
Safe in one dimension and not safe in another.
yeah. But you can, changing the health, or smoking cessation programs, all that kind of thing. Sometimes you make an impact with some folks, like the 30 people that actually work towards a program. Others mainly do bits and pieces of it. And I think it also ties back to like the culture and the morale and the engagement. So we measure our safety, but we also measure our turnover.
Turnover is another good measure. That seems to be down.
Extremely.
like extremely.
0%, we keep rocking at 0, so. Fiscal 25 is off to a great start.
Something to think about. Are there sort of metrics we could, without getting too micromanaging? Metrics, how well we're doing with our work.
And one of the things we started a well, be on the third survey. So we do a net promoter score survey. We've heard of those with like consumers, customer service, to kind of gauge what people are thinking of the organization. So it's not their health, but it's kind of how they feel about their place of work.
Yeah.
So we're doing that every 6 months. We'll do it again in October.
You have the ability in that to choose questions versus that product.
It's the net promoter score. It's designed to be a one question thing. Would you recommend somebody coming to work at AlexRenew? 1 to 10. And then there's a calculation. You can lob off the like first lower end and the top end, and then it's very, I'll make sure he shares it with you once we do it again in October, so you get an idea. Or I guess I'll be back and talk about benefits again, so.
We also added questions to the second half of our score to try and get some of that feedback
Yeah.
on how staff were responding to change, things like that. We also talked about doing a full employee survey. We're still, working through those ideas. We want to go out and do a full, employee satisfaction type survey, but that would get into the point that Mr. Hall brought up.
If you can
That's
design
something we
those
talked
in
about.
many different ways.
Good.
This is the first one for I've seen it in the social development community. What goes into that?
Well, like the community component we added in this year, so supporting our partners like Alive and doing the food drive. Because we've done that before, but we didn't have it associated with our wellness program. I'm not quite sure what she has in mind for social, because that's new this year too. My wellness person is at a conference, that's why I'm presenting for her.
It's a very holistic.
Always trying to improve upon it. Who am I passing this on to? Who's speaking next? Next.
We're moving on to, if there are no more questions on wellness,
You don't need it, you don't have it in your presentation. Okay.
keep rolling. Roll right on to progressive design bill for tertiary.
So we sent it out initially in the draft packet, or the final packet in August. We've talked for the last few months about the changes in the General Assembly, resulting in the need to bring a board resolution to a board resolution or motion to every decision if we make a design build, moving forward on a design build project. So if we want to do a design build job, we would have to pass it over project by project basis. This is that resolution for the tertiary upgrade project, which is the third major project that we discussed with the board. We've got primary, solid, and tertiary. So we're touching all the planning over the next 10 years. This is the project that we're planning to go out to bid in early February, early next calendar year. But we wanted to get everything in place for the RFQ, and the RFQ will follow. So we're asking the board to approve this resolution to do design build for the example. The actual resolution is the culmination of the presentation we used the board to pass and why design build is preferred for conducting these major projects after this. And why design build?
This third, therefore, I've got 1 page with 4 answers. I don't have anything else.
Second page, not,
I've got,
so there is.
I have one, there might be more. I think there's more.
My name's at the bottom of page 1.
There's 3 more horizons and another 4 pages long. The board also wants to use this line bill to look into facilities. This is improvement. That's what.
Everyone has to do their best.
We have this, you don't,
Just.
you don't have that.
Yeah. You should.
I got it. I
Got it?
don't know what it was.
No, I'm just getting my.
It's fine. Your inspection habits will be issued in February 2020. It's a all by that, but plans to be issued. The, at the very end, let's see, the, second to last whereas says the, our, will be issued again, February 2025. That site plan to be issued in February 2025. Life happens and.
We're gonna pull it up.
I think everybody's got it. Guys, that's certainly the future. You're certain. Yeah, that's happening. Yeah, that's.
We had a chance to review this. Good. And then again, this is really a summary of what we talked about last time. Is there a motion to approve the resolution as it appears? Second by Ms. Colvelli. All in favor? Okay, I think we're coming into the home stretch here. Monthly outcome report. Mr. Carr.
So we sent an email to the board, I believe, in August, giving you the good news about our enrollment in our home assistance program. I think we're up to $625,000 of our current arrears is enrolled in the payment assistance program. Same time, we have one of our large financial accounts pay off their arrears, so we have been coordinating with that account for a period of probably 4 or 5 months. And you see that we dropped down in our arrears value dropped in August, as well as our number of delinquencies has dropped significantly as well. I think that, mainly because we've seen the effects of shutoffs as well as our outreach campaign to get people to sign up for payment plan. So if you see on page 5 of the monthly report, our current arrears is about, 1.1 million, and about $630,000 of that arrears are already on active payment plan. So we mentioned that in addition to that, we're also getting enrollments in LEAP, and we are also doing shut off. I'll say that to Mr. Robertson exactly through the entire meeting. But what I do want to note is that with this information, payment plan and LEAP, we are getting data, and we're starting to be able to get data, just statistics on who can pay, who might not be able to pay. We've seen some customers sign up for payment plan, and in 1 month, they could overpay on their bill that following month, and they have actual credit on their bill the following month. So we can tell what customers are actually on payment plan, and pay by tracking. what we're looking for right now are some of those customers that are going month to month and they're making zero payments, dropping off, coming back on. And what we're doing with those customers is doing targeted outreach directly to them. Email, text, mailers to those customers to let them know to sign up for leave if they're struggling to continue to stay on the payment plan. So that's helping on the back end on leave, which I will say for Mr. Love. So a lot of good news with respect to one of the people our disconnects, but also for our communications team at Thomas for getting the word out on our payment plans.
Question for you, pre-COVID. I think these numbers, we use that as our benchmark of what normal would be.
Got around, we had that big belly, I'd say our real value is around 200,000. And before that, it came off of pre-COVID again, a similar peak of 1.2 million, down to 600,000, down to a value of about 200,000 for a period of probably 2018 to 2020.
Thank you.
We're not there yet, but I feel like we made significant progress towards the back end of the summer.
You or Mr. Robertson have any sort of anecdotal data or anecdotal information about the nature of delinquent accounts? People didn't know they had to pay or didn't want to pay, just unaware that they had to pay?
Yes, so some of all of those, I think. Some of all of those. So I think what we've kind of found, bringing back disconnections, is that there were, I mean, anecdotally speaking, a large number of folks that didn't realize that either we were real or a utility. I mean, that is certainly a portion of it.
Are we real?
Yeah, so there's definitely a group of folks that go, oh, I actually have to pay this bill, or there's a consequence. I think there's a fair amount that thought we were a scam or something like that. When I say anecdotally, I think it's like under 10, 5%, probably less, 5%, I guess. But we do hear those cases. There are a certain number of folks that were waiting to see whether, there was going to be some other sort of, federal or state grant, I think, and when that hasn't come through, like, okay, this is the real deal now, to pay my bill. So we've seen a lot of that as well. Kind of speaking to what, I think I've said this before to this group, but when we speak with Promise Pay deals with a lot of different utilities throughout the state, and something that they say is fairly unique about Alexandria is that when they reached out to say, hey, you need to sign a payment plan with their original campaign, they said in Alexandria specifically, they heard the response of, oh, okay, I'll actually pay my bill now, more than any other area in the state. Like people had the means to pay it, essentially. They choose not to for whatever reason. They don't always disclose. I think it's encouraging to see the number of folks that have enrolled in a payment plan, though. I think that's tremendous. We've had a huge success there, so that's great. That's going to be an ongoing battle, and I think when you have that many people sign up for a payment plan, the curve is going to take a little longer to come down because that payment's going to come in over time. But the fact that people are making those payments is also
Shocking drop in the curve.
Yeah.
Wow.
a huge portion of that was from that single.
Sure. But
About
Did that single customer pay because we shut them off or just because they finally realized that they have to pay the bills?
We met with their board personally.
it was a collaboration between AlexRenew and the city, so we saw the benefits of that working relationship. Ms. Waters, Mr. Robertson, and the city working together to help and get them restructured in order for them to make the payment. So it was a good success story. I think in addition to that, disconnection, we have been very delicate about disconnection, so we're making sure that we're following up. If you look at our report out to the board, you can track those 39 customers. 32 of our 39 customers enrolled in payment plans just in August. 5 of those customers paid in full, and then 2 customers just had service turned off by the review. So we've been cognizant about keeping an eye on disconnections as well and tying it back to our outreach on lead and our Promise Pay.
So did any of these customers who were disconnected end up requesting funding from LEAP? Now we've got the LEAP and we've got the disconnections. Is there any overlap there?
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't tracked that, but I can tell you that it's happened. I don't have the exact statistics.
For disconnection and use description.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the monthly report? Yes.
Can we run through the big dashboard?
Yep.
So really quickly, I would point this out just because I think it's pretty encouraging, but so this report is to date up to August 31st, and we had 9 customers request assistance. But since this report, we've had 6 more, so we had 4 last week, 2 the week before. So that's, I think, showing that kind of ongoing. I think people are seeing the communications, everything that we do related to disconnections, highlight that we have LEAP and promise pay plans available, which, you know, certainly helps kind of drive some of the traffic to our community partners there.
Are the
Yes, Sarah.
additional, sorry, are the additional disconnections, in September? It was 39 in August,
Yeah, so so this is cumulative up till August, so it's,
but we just started.
and disconnections, we started in July.
We couldn't have done weather.
After the election.
Yeah.
And then based on weather.
There were a week or two where it was.
Below the, just got in there. And I real quick.
Well, so it's kind of an automated process, like we submit the report to Virginia American Water, and they're either able to or not able to do this. So they were able to also perform disconnect.
So we've been shutting off July, August, and
So this is just through August, we've done additional disconnect.
I couldn't see it on my note, my paper, but Ms. Hammer, you can see where the dot and the square overlap, that's a disconnection plus a leak description. One in 20018, 302, 20600. So there's 3 that it's just hard to see on the,
Got it.
I think some of them might be so close, it's hard to say.
but we can overlay that. Take a look at the data.
And then if you turn to the last page, the other thing I was gonna highlight here is, this is just interesting, there's only 9 customers, so this is pretty easy to track at this point. It might get a little bit more difficult to track going forward. So the first customer all the way to the left, they're no longer delinquent, they're caught up. The second customer broke their payment plan and is now has an arrearage again, and then the remaining, I guess it would be 7 there, all on payment plans, so that's important.
I would like to note to the board, we're not asking for a change this evening, but our value as of today, this is the end of August, is about $90,000 in leave. And we are still looking at 350 as the max disbursement per year. You know, I don't know how much longer we want to, if we want to keep looking at the data as we get another month of data and make a decision sometime later this fall about potentially upping that value. To either pay off the urge like CARES did, to get through this curve of disconnections and then fix it moving forward, or just up the value to something a little bit higher, because if you can see the average of these arrearages that are looking for support through the, you know, are around, you know, $1,400. And look at the average value of those still.
how long did the payment?
12 months. 20, yeah,
So it's 24,
if we're gonna change it up to 24 months,
and will that be based on the total owed?
but right now.
I'm sure I've asked you this before, sorry. Do we know what the average arrearages for all past due accounts? Like, is this typical?
So I think the average was it 6 something?
The average of it.
Yeah.
It's like $350, that's what we said.
Oh, that's right.
The median.
That was the
average,
median.
right, was 350.
Interesting. So, but we're seeing, these accounts with,
Of people
maybe it's
applying for-
because the people with, lower arrearages don't feel the need
Yeah.
to seek legal assistance. Yeah, I would support, continuing to monitor this for, let's get some more data. Too, but just based on what we're seeing, the 50 seems low compared to the need.
When are you gonna make the change about the length of the I'm just sort of looking at the individual, the 2600, that's still holding the change.
So in the policy, we put just up to 24 months, so when we get the policy approved, I think we can move forward probably next third meeting. Think the change for the payment plan, so again, we're trying to look at the payment plan, be fair on payment plans too, so when you look at the arrears value, you're trying to fix 12 months versus 24, because they'll do two payment durations. Thomas will do 2 payment durations for you. I'm trying to fix that number. Is it $1,000 and then you bumped up to 24 months, or is it more like $500 before you get bumped up to 24? So we're trying to fix that value right now.
Sure.
With respect to Thomas and right now.
So call it $7,000. So it's 67 months.
At the end of August, it was 67. Today, it's 90.
So with $9,000, at $350 per household, that's like 180,000 households. That's like more people than live in the city.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's on the
Anyway, there's a lot of,
Your point is well taken.
Okay.
There's a lot of headroom. It's an uphill communications challenge too.
It's still very early in the game. Very promising. Thank you. Anything else on the dashboard, Mr. Cross?
just a review dashboard, I think, has up, probably our last community listening session will be tomorrow evening, weather permitting. We'll make a call in the morning based on the forecast. That's going to be at our fall 2. That will likely be the end of the community listening sessions, because we'll be wrapping up work here within the next 6 months without fall 1, post runs essentially. All that done, we're doing restoration work, and then our fall 2 will be done soon thereafter. In 2025. So for the, it's kind of end of an era for the listening sessions piece. The other big news on AlexRenew are pile driving at our fall 1 will be wrapping up within the next 2 weeks. Projecting about a week and a half more pile driving at fall 1. We have really had any complaints, and we had a lot of positive feedback last evening, and 40, 50 people come through the boards, asking mainly focused on the finished product and the comment that people be able to get into that.
I've got a question on the progress bars on page 2. The lower right-hand corner, AlexRenew site, 32% complete. The question is, we have to be 100% complete there for the tunnel, for the river removal to be operations.
No. The pumps have to pump, well, the has to be electric to the pump. The pumps have to be able to water the tunnel and send it through. If the building's over it, great. If not, right, we're good to go. So if things like substantial completion, yes, we have to get to a substantial completion, but restoration, cladding on the building, the green roof, that kind of thing, that's probably 90 days.
And now the other 3 locations, Pendleton, Royal, and Hooks, they have to be at 100 or very close to it.
Correct.
Very close to it.
Correct, and these numbers are skewed because they're based on old schedule values and, contractors good at progressing work, but not so good at progressing their payment on the SOP. So take that with a grain of salt, respect there, it will approve almost in a full.
Value.
The best way we can do this. But I think another big milestone is November, we are off the RTM site. And we're just going to be in that little silver of land to the north of the site. That's essentially where the promenade is going to be. We'll go back to city only property and that. Rest of that site gets turned over to the developer. For the city to go with
Any other discussion on the report? Yeah. Okay, the final item of business. Board administrative items. You're all wondering what that is. Oh, you wondering what that is?
I'm sure I am.
We have things to present. Things to present. Jeff Bezos just sent you something. We have a resolution. Member who's leaving us for Prince George's County. But let me read part. I won't read all. This is AlexRenew Board of Directors resolution recognizing the contributions of Ms. Adriana Caldarelli. Whereas the city, I'll pass that part. Whereas Ms. Caldarelli's 25 years of experience as an environmental professional in the water sector greatly enhanced AlexRenew's ability to serve its local community with agility, empathy, and understanding of customer needs. Whereas Ms. Caldarelli served during the $615 million River Renew program, the largest capital investment in the history of AlexRenew. Whereas Ms. Caldarelli was influential in establishing AlexRenew's Lifeline Emergency Assistance Program, or LEAP, to assist customers having trouble paying their sewer bills. Whereas, as a member of the Finance and Audit Committee, Ms. Caldarelli oversaw AlexRenew's first public bond sale, first green bond sale as an authority in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Whereas Ms. Caldarelli served as a judge of the annual Ellen Pickering Environmental Excellence Award, award given to deserving Alexandrians joining the city of Alexandria. And whereas Ms. Caldarelli's thoughtful questions, level-headed approach proved valuable as AlexRenew initiatives, viewed initiatives, policies, and projects. Whereas Ms. Caldarelli was a strong supporter of AlexRenew and its mission of protecting public health and waterways that connect us. Therefore, it is resolved that AlexRenew Board of Directors hereby wishes to acknowledge and thank Ms. Adriana Caldarelli for many years of dedicated service on behalf of AlexRenew.
Yeah.
Let's pass this as motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
And we have other gifts. This is amazing. We have.
Oh, my goodness. This is really cool.
That cool. And that's,
Yeah,
want to give a little background? It's all polished up.
it's awesome.
Yeah, so that's one of the Hazel's smaller cutting teeth. So we're gonna try and set one of the large ones like that. That was taken off that outfall shoe during the intervention, so she mined the first, that tooth mined the first couple thousand feet of the waterfront tunnel.
That's awesome. Thanks.
You'll see that where her carbide teeth got worn down and chipped off, so. Yeah.
That is really cool. I like, yeah.
Yeah. Keep that in. That's a page.
It's a good paperweight.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing's gonna blow out.
And then there is a tradition on the board that when a board member leaves, they get the words of the song of the school. You know that's right.
That's not like the song itself.
No. If I didn't know where.
Yeah, can we hear it?
A little background. you know, that is for your office. This is for a room in your house that maybe has a closer association with wastewater treatment. Ed Norton, you know, the honeymooners, he would have worked this verse. And he would sing this. We sing the song of the sewer. The sewer, we sing this song. Together we stand with shovel in hand to keep things rolling along.
That does belong to that.
And this is Adriana Calvarelli, Board of Directors, 2020, 2024, from your friend. This is for you.
Thank you very much.
And as we have silence, of course. But we'll find out. We're going to miss you very much. You were with us during probably the most critical period.
It has been a ride, the shutdown and then coming out of it and then Hazel, that was pretty amazing. It's been an honor to work with you all. I can't tell you how much I've learned. I feel like I got way more out of this than you guys did. On top of this amazing piece of history. So thank you all for, you know, hanging with me and answering my crazy questions and doing the great work that you do for the residents here. It's well appreciated and it's been an honor. So
Thank you for contributing to us today. Now, I understand there is dessert or something.
Yeah, there is ice cream.
It's great. I don't know how we determine
I
your
don't know.
secret ice cream.
Oh, she's got a spy on.
But before we do, we did a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. On the ice cream.
Yay. Absolutely. Oh my God, it is ridiculous. But kind of.
That is.